Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really important and I think often confusing area of modern business, employee appreciation.
That's right.
Specifically, we're going to get into the source materials you shared, which focus on two critical and very distinct concepts, rewards and recognition.
Yeah, and people use these terms interchangeably all the time, but confusing them is it's a massive strategic error.
Okay, so that's our mission today then.
It is. We want to unpack that difference, really look at the distinct business outcomes each one drives, and give you a kind of systematic framework for actually implementing a unified strategy that works.
And the stakes here, they really couldn't be higher. This is not just about morale, it's pure strategy. Our sources point to some compelling, quantifiable results.
Oh, absolutely.
Companies that really commit to strong, systematic recognition programs see huge gains.
It goes way beyond being just a nice-to-have HR function. It's a core driver of retention and performance. The data shows organizations with these robust programs see a massive 31% lower voluntary turnover rate.
31%.
Yeah, just think about the costs tied to replacing key people. And on the performance side, they report an 11.1% higher average employee performance. These are numbers that, they profoundly impact the bottom line.
That 11.1% performance jump is huge. And it leads us right into this central paradox that we really need to crack open today. The sources point out something fascinating. Job satisfaction is actually pretty high right now. The numbers from 2023 hit, 62.3%?
Yep. The highest since surveys began way back in 1987. People generally feel good about their jobs.
But, and this is the key, despite that high baseline satisfaction, the Gallup research we looked at says nearly 7 out of 10 employees, 69%, would still work harder if they just felt better appreciated.
And that's the recognition gap.
That paradox is the core finding we have to unpack. It tells us high satisfaction isn't the same thing as high engagement.
Not at all.
And the strategy behind appreciation is what truly bridges that gap and drives that extra effort. You might be satisfied, but if you don't feel seen, you're probably not giving that extra 10%.
Precisely. So to build that effective strategy, we first have to distinguish the two. Rewards and recognition. They're complementary, they work beautifully together, but they fulfill fundamentally different psychological needs.
Okay, so let's nail down that core distinction.
Yeah.
If we think of them as two sides of the same coin, what really defines them?
Okay, so rewards are tangible. They're about material benefits, economic value, and what's crucial here is that they are conditional and transactional.
An exchange.
Exactly. It's an exchange given after a specific measurable achievement has been delivered. It appeals directly to our extrinsic motivation.
So like getting a financial bonus for hitting a sales target, or maybe a promotion, a gift card. I think the sources even mentioned these flexible platforms where employees can choose from over 100 merchants.
Exactly. You do X, you get Y. It's very result-oriented. Now, recognition, on the other hand, is intangible.
The emotional side.
Yes, it's the emotional acknowledgement, the validation. It's relational, and it can happen at any time because it focuses on effort, on behavior, on alignment with values. Not just the final outcome. It hits that intrinsic motivation button.
So that's the personal thank you note from a manager or a public shout out in the team meeting or, those peer-to-peer kudos you see on Slack.
And it fulfills that deep human need to feel valued and to feel like you belong to the team.
What's really interesting is how the source of that appreciation can differ so much.
It's a huge point. Rewards almost always flow top down. They're controlled by managers holding the budget strings, so they're necessarily less frequent, right? Yeah. Tied to big milestones, quarterly goals, annual reviews.
But recognition completely democratizes appreciation.
It does.
Because it often has low or no cost. It can come from absolutely anyone, peers, subordinates, colleagues in another department. It could be a daily thing, totally ongoing and spontaneous.
That source flexibility is key. It makes appreciation feel like a collective effort woven right into the culture.
Okay, so now that we've separated extrinsic rewards from intrinsic recognition, let's look at why rewards are still absolutely indispensable.
Their main goal isn't happiness. It is to clearly and effectively drive specific, measurable behaviors.
Right. They clarify that effort to reward equation. If I know that putting in extra effort on this project will lead to a clear, desirable reward, I'm much more motivated to do it.
And that clarity pays off. The sources cite Gartner research confirming that well-designed reward programs are what drive that 11.1% bump in performance we mentioned earlier.
And crucially, they align what an employee is doing day to day with the big strategic goals of the company. They create direct accountability.
If you reward for innovation, you get more innovation. If you reward for efficiency, you get efficiency. It's that simple. When you align incentives with those metrics, organizations become 12 times more likely to achieve strong business outcomes.
12 times.
The reward is like the company's GPS, directing all that employee energy toward the right destination.
Okay, let's connect that transactional nature of rewards back to the bigger picture here, retention and the financial argument.
The financial case is so compelling, and for you, the listener, you really need to frame this as a strategic investment, not a cost. That 31% reduction in turnover we talked about, it translates directly into major savings.
Can you walk us through that calculation from the source material again? Because that number just really brings the whole point home.
Absolutely. So the source calculated that for a mid-sized company, let's say 500 employees, average salary of around $60,000. Reducing voluntary turnover by 31% saves approximately $558,000 annually.
Wow.
And that saving comes from avoiding recruitment fees, onboarding costs, and that lost productivity gap that happens every single time a position turns over.
So if you're a manager or an executive listening to this, hearing that you can save $500,000, I mean, that changes the conversation instantly.
It stops being a feel-good program.
Right. It becomes essential business infrastructure.
Exactly. And that's why industry research recommends allocating at least 1% of total payroll to these programs. The companies that spend that 1% report just a remarkable 79% higher success rate in hitting their business goals.
Okay, so rewards handle the transactional, measurable outcomes. But where does the real culture-building magic happen? That has to be recognition.
That's right. While rewards manage performance, recognition manages culture. It fulfills that core human need for validation, for a sense of belonging in a community.
What's so powerful about recognition is its ability to translate these, abstract corporate values into concrete, visible behaviors.
That is the cultural mechanism right there. Globoforce research showed that 83% of HR leaders agree that recognition strengthens organizational values. So if your company values collaboration,
Right.
and you recognize an employee for stepping up to help another team that was struggling, it doesn't just make that one person feel good. It shows everyone else what collaboration actually looks like in practice. It makes the abstract tangible and repeatable.
And that visibility, that transparency, must be what drives engagement.
Dramatically. Employees who feel consistently recognized are 7 times more likely to be fully engaged. When they feel seen, they develop a much stronger pride in their work. And here's the kicker for creating sustained change. They are 92% more likely to repeat the specific behaviors they were recognized for.
I have to ask, though, isn't there a risk that if recognition happens too often, it just loses its meaning?
Yeah.
Recognition fatigue.
That's a critical question, and the sources emphasize that while frequency is necessary, it's the specificity that prevents that fatigue.
Okay.
A generalized, hey, good job this week, can quickly become meaningless noise. But a specific call-out like, thank you for fixing that major database error at 11 p.m. on Friday, which prevented a client outage, that recognition is specific, it's tied to a valuable action, and it never loses its impact.
That brings us right to the role of peer-to-peer recognition. Why does that seem to carry so much more weight sometimes than top-down praise?
Simply put, your colleagues see the day-to-day. They see the small wins, the heroic efforts that managers, especially in big or remote organizations, are just going to miss.
They're in the trenches with you.
Exactly. The research shows 77% of employees specifically value having opportunities for peer recognition. It builds that horizontal accountability.
And when you encourage that flow of appreciation between peers, it improves relationships. The data backs this up. 87% report better workplace relationships when it's actively encouraged.
Right. It stops feeling like the boss is just giving out gold stars and starts feeling like a community supporting itself.
Okay, so we've established the what and the why. How do organizations actually move this from being a sporadic, feel-good thing to a systematic, scalable program?
We need a framework.
Yeah.
And it has to go beyond the annual performance review. Step 1 is setting clear objectives and criteria.
So tying it back to strategy.
You have to. Recognition must be explicitly linked to company values and the outcomes you want to see. You define what success looks like. Otherwise, appreciation just becomes random and it undermines the whole goal.
This leads right into what I think is the most crucial detail for you, the listener. The delivery has to be timely and hyper-specific.
Yes. Delayed or generalized recognition loses its motivational impact almost entirely. If the achievement was 3 weeks ago, the impact is already halved.
So let's contrast what works versus what doesn't.
Okay, so instead of a rushed email that just says, "Good job on the quarterly report, team," which is generic and forgettable, you need to use language that proves you actually saw the effort.
Give us that example from the source material. It was so good.
The transformative approach is to say something like, "Excellent work completing the quarterly report 48 hours ahead of schedule. Specifically, your attention to detail on the data, your proactive communication with legal, and your use of the virtual phone system to walk stakeholders through the findings were instrumental."
See, that level of detail sticks with an employee.
And we have to talk about frequency. The data suggests employees should get recognition at least monthly. That makes them 45% more engaged. But 43% of employees actually prefer to get it at least once a week.
You just can't do that manually.
You can't, which means the system has to be automated, trackable, and easy to use. The platform isn't just a delivery method, it's an intelligence system.
Exactly. The role of technology is just non-negotiable if you want to scale this.
Yeah.
The platform has to be robust. It needs to support that instant peer-to-peer recognition. It needs to have mobile access for frontline workers.
And it has to integrate seamlessly.
And when we say integrate, we mean linking into those big HR databases, right? The systems like ADP and UKG. So all this recognition data feeds right into talent analytics and performance reviews.
Precisely. If that data lives in a silo, it has no strategic power. Crucially, the platform has to provide analytics and insights. You have to track participation rates, values alignment.
What do you mean by values alignment?
So you can see how many recognition badges for innovation are being given out versus badges for customer service. It tells you which values are really living in your culture. And most importantly, you track the correlation between recognition and retention to prove that ROI.
Which brings us to continuous measurement, the final steps of implementation, and the ones that are so often overlooked.
They are. Tracking participation is step one. The sources say you should aim for 60% or more active users to know the program has real cultural adoption.
And the payoff for that adoption is clear.
It is. Recognized employees consistently show 20 to 31% lower voluntary turnover. You need to prove that connection exists in your own organization.
And the final piece is managing the reward budget itself. You have to continuously optimize that catalog based on what employees are actually redeeming.
This is a deep analytical layer. If you see that, say, electronics and travel are redeemed 80% of the time, but only 20% of your budget is going to gift cards for a niche restaurant, you reallocate that budget immediately.
It keeps the rewards desirable.
It keeps them desirable, prevents budget waste, and keeps the whole program motivating.
So pulling it all together, rewards are conditional, transactional, and they drive specific performance through extrinsic motivation. They're the measurable drivers.
And recognition is relational, continuous, and it builds lasting culture and intrinsic engagement. It makes people feel valued, strengthens their sense of belonging. You need both. They tackle different ends of the motivational spectrum.
So what this all means for you is that implementing a combined modern program delivers superior results. You get both that 11.1% higher performance and that 31% lower turnover. And the good news is technology now makes this all trackable, systematic, and fully integrated.
But this does raise one final important question that organizations have to consider once they've mastered the mechanics of it all.
Okay.
While recognizing achievements is crucial, research shows that only 32% of employees strongly agree they receive fair recognition.
That's the equity gap we have to tackle next.
It is. Once the system is built, the question becomes, what practices beyond just tracking frequency do you need to adopt to ensure truly inclusive and equitable distribution of both rewards and acknowledgement?
Across all departments, all demographics.
Exactly. Are your frontline workers being seen at the same rate as your remote managers? You have to be careful that the program doesn't accidentally erode the very trust it's meant to build.
A truly strategic question to mull over as you optimize your own systems. That's a wrap on this deep dive into how to strategically appreciate and highly motivate your people. Thank you for diving deep with us.